short, I would say about 4 hours train ride. And I went to the address. They were there. They took care of me and bought me again a ticket, which I couldn't buy. I had no permits to travel, but they did, to travel to Gerlitz in southeast Germany. It's by the Polish border, Czechoslovakian border, against in the mountains, where I planned to get over the border at night, through the river. The river was shallow at that area. I could walk through it. So I got quite safely across the border, and even if the countries were under one occupation, Russian, they maintained a border guard between Poland and East Germany. Every 100, 200 feet in strategic place, there was a tower, a wooden tower, and there was a soldier on the Polish side guarding, overlooking the river, who is sneaking through. It was a moonlit night, very nice. In fact, I had to wait until a cloud covered the moon to jump under the next tree. Got to the river, carried my clothes on my head, dressed again, and went down. Now I'm on the Polish side.
That's how you crossed the river. You took your clothes off, put them on.
That's right. I look at the tower that I've seen from the German side, and the soldier is gone. So I said, what? Why would he leave a station, He must have seen me. He's after me. So I get on my stomach, and there was a little garden, maybe like half of this space here, and where people grow things for themselves, fenced. And I get on, start going, crawling, in the grass. It's already May, maybe even June already. And I go this way, and I don't see him. I go the other way, I don't see him, and I don't see him any place around. I turn another corner, and I see his boots. He was the same thing.
So he's right there.
I was behind him.
Yeah.
So naturally now I knew where he is. I turned back and towards the town, I knew where he was. So that worked all right. I got home, not home, but close by. I had a place again to stay with my friend in the same unit, another officer. Went to his parents. The parents went next morning to contact my mother, tell her that I am there, and the purpose I came, that I have money, and I want to bribe the Russians to get Clara out. So my mother came with John. John was only not quite 3 months old. In July he'd be 3 years old. 3 years old. And he came, and of course I was introduced that I am his uncle. He accepted that. So we had the day together. My mother went next day to bribe the commanding officer of that prison to get Clara out. At that time, she found out how badly Clara was beaten. They stretched her 3 times a day on a wooden bench and beat her with electric cable on the back of her legs, 3 times, and the soles of her feet, so she couldn't walk. So she came basically on a stretcher. She couldn't go with me. She went to the hospital. We bribed them enough. And I had to return to the Union. My 2 weeks in England were over soon, and nobody knew where I was going.
I'm gonna reposition just slightly. Just
Yeah.
stay right there in the story.
Yeah.
I almost forgot about repositioning. I was just listening to the story.
Should I?
That's good. Alright. We're still recording, I think. Yeah. Actually, hold on. So, okay, we're going again. So,
On?
we're recording again.
Okay. So this worked so far so good. She got out, and I had to head back to West Germany. So after 2 more days, I packed, went the same way, since I consider now I know the route, I know how to do it, and I know it happened to be about Saturday. From Saturday to Sunday, I crossed the river back into East Germany from Poland.
By yourself?
By myself, because Clara was in hospital. She couldn't walk. And I had a pretty good idea about the railroad from my own experience. I figured out how to board the train without ticket. And I read on the schedule there at Gerlitz that there is a fast train coming from Russia, from Soviet Union. This was a train that the Russian soldiers were returning to their units from, say, a month's holiday or whatever they got. So I say, well, that's the best way. Nobody carries tickets on a Russian train. I was in civilian, and of course the Russians, half of them were in uniform, how they still wore a civilian clothes and had the uniform in a bag, or they left it in the unit. So it was about noon. The train pulled into station. I hid on the platform until the train was ready to leave, and jump on the train as a last passenger. Promptly, I found a seat among the Russians, and I had that German cap. I pulled it over my eyes, and I say, I have to pretend that I am asleep, because I didn't speak Russian at all. A few words, like chopped potatoes. So I didn't want to speak to anybody. Unfortunately, I was tired with all night getting across the river, and I fell asleep. And I was nicely moving towards Berlin, and a train stops. I looked through the window. It stopped in the middle of nowhere. It was not supposed to stop there at all. So I look through it, big commotion. Russian soldiers enter the train from the station. One small station one building, and they go through every car of the train asking for identification. Of course, I had nothing, not even my name on me. I say I rather die nameless. So they grabbed my shoulder and say "Gumashka," which means identification. I say no, out of the train. And they pulled a number of people out, and the train was waved away towards Berlin, and we were put in a coal shed. Every station stores coal for heating. There were a number of us. I was the only one Polish, the rest were German. And they were all in civilian clothes, like I was. From that point, now I could converse with them, and I found out that the reason the train was stopped, the day before, there was an escape from a POW camp, German POW, when they kept Germans, before they shipped them to Siberia. They just couldn't accommodate all the people they got. So they had a number of camps close in East Germany. That's year after the war finished. And since there was a general escape, they blocked all the traffic on the highway parallel to the train track, and all the trains were stopped and searched for those that escaped. And that's how we got into the travel there. So one by one was called in. 2 soldiers came, wave anybody, and come out. And when it came my turn, they led me into the waiting room of the railroad station, very small. There was a huge table covered with red cloth. There was a Russian flag, red flag, on the wall, and Stalin's picture on it. And officer on the other side of the table orders me to strip myself completely. So I am taking my clothes off very slowly, trying to figure out how to get out of it. And I came down to my underwear, and that's what I didn't change when I left from the army. Says, who is going to look at my underwear? And in the British Army, the uniform, everything belongs to the king. And the king has a big round stamp with 2 lions and the property of King George VIII. And that was right on front of the T-shirt. When the Russian officer see it, he must known about it, or otherwise. He says, pointing to the stamp, property of the King George VIII. He says, he is a spy. Didn't have to take my shirt off. He calls a soldier from the door. He says, "Zastrelaj," which means shoot him. He issued the order, and I grabbed my clothes and start putting my pants, everything back on. And the soldiers walks under the wall. There was a rack for the rifles. Grabs the rifle, loads 5 shots in it, and is waiting for me to get going. He was only about 17, 18 years old. I was already 22, 23. So we walk out, and he points out where to go. never talked, never said one word. And I first start pulling out of the pockets the left of my contraband, which was about half a pound of tobacco, was preferred to cigarettes, and I think chocolate and some money. I had money sewn into the collar of my jacket, into the belt of my pants, you know. I stuck money in. So I was pulling all I had in my life and giving it to him. He took everything. He was taking and never saying one word. He walked me to the end of the station. There was a regular shed where the railroad shipment arrives, you know, and people come and pick it up. There was a slightly elevated ramp, and I see bodies lying there. Must have been some of the guys that went out of the coal shed before me, you know. So I see where I going to lie. And we come to it, to the location. He slings his carbine from his shoulder, and the first word, and the only word I ever heard from him, he said, "Uciekaj." Uciekaj means run. Now, run means that I shoot you in the back, you know, while you run, or whatever. Well, what choices did I have, right? Whether I be shot in front or in the back. So when I heard that word, Uciekaj, I started running. I started running towards the ditch, irrigation ditch, with willows around. And about 100 yards away, I hear him firing the first shot. But he didn't aim at me at all. He just fired it like that. Because being in war, you know where the bullets fly, you know. You can hear it. So I was encouraged that he really doesn't want to shoot me. So I dove into the irrigation ditch. It was dry. But it didn't matter. The willows were there. And when I got on my feet, I started running. Naturally, in the direction the water is supposed to go, which is towards the river, because that's the low point. And I was running. I reached the river Oder, and I turned in the direction the river goes, which is north, and still ran. I didn't run until I stopped, I think, at Cottbus, a town, a larger railroad station, which must have been late, because this whole shooting started at noon, but it was already getting dark. And naturally, the first direction is towards the railroad station, because you know everything about it. I know how the German railroad operates. And I went to the railroad station and found an empty boxcar train going towards Berlin. It's written on it, to Berlin. Those were the trains that the Russians sent to take the machinery from Germany to Russia. You know, they were taking whole factories out of East Germany. So I got into the boxcar, locked myself in, empty